Hey, what's up guys, it's Nick2 and today I'll be showing you guys how to get the new exotic sniper called the Nemesis, along with giving a review of the gun, talking about whether or not I think it's good or worth using, and also going to go over a few tips when using the Nemesis as a secondary gun to get an extra ton of damage with your other weapons, and I'm also going to show you how to do a ton of damage with the Nemesis in general and kind of like a build the setup for it. If set up properly, you can easily do about 4 million damage a shot with the Nemesis, which is absolutely ridiculous, so definitely stay tuned if you want to see how to do that. So I'm sure some of you already know how to get it, but in case you don't, I'll just give a quick rundown. So in order to get the gun, you have to do a few invaded missions to get all of the parts and then the blueprint, and you pretty much just craft the sniper. If you don't already have some of the parts, you won't be able to get all of them within the same week, as you can't do certain missions on the invaded difficulty because the missions that are on invaded change on a weekly basis. So in terms of the actual missions that you have to do, you can do these in any order, by the way, it doesn't matter. And I'll reiterate, you do have to do the missions on invaded difficulty, so just make sure that you're doing that. First, there is Tidal Basin. Once you're in the mission, you need to come to this exact area and open this box right here, and then once you deconstruct the item that you get out of the box, you should get the first piece, thanks to Wids for this gameplay, by the way. The other 3 pieces are much simpler to get. You just need to kill the last boss in each of the other 3 strongholds, being the District Union Stronghold, the Roosevelt Island Stronghold, and the Capitol Building Stronghold. Once you have all 4 of the parts, in order to get the blueprint to craft the gun, you need to replay the mission called Grand Washington Hotel. Make sure that it is on the invaded difficulty, and after killing the first boss, you should get the blueprint to craft it. These pieces should have a 100% chance to drop, so you shouldn't have any issue not being able to receive the pieces. As long as you can complete them on the invaded difficulty, you should get them no problem. In terms of how to actually craft the gun, it's actually pretty simple. Once you get the blueprint, you can just run over to the crafting table and just craft it, no problem. The first time you make it though, it will be locked at 490 gear score, so what you want to do is make it for the first time and then go and buy the blueprint from the vendor in the White House to upgrade it to 500 gear score. If the blueprint isn't at the vendor, just log out and log back in, and then it should be there as long as you already have crafted the 490 version. Then, if you want to upgrade it to 500 gear score, just run back over to the crafting station, and as long as you have exotic components and the other required materials, you can just make the Nemesis over and over and over again until you get the highest base damage possible, and of course have it at 500 gear score. You don't have to farm the parts out again or anything, you pretty much just consume the Nemesis that you're already using every time that you craft it, so that's great. As long as you got exotic components, you're set. Side note, a good way to get exotic components is farming DZ, getting pestilences, and deconstructing them is probably the fastest way. So yeah, that's how you get it. It's pretty easy to get, and it doesn't really take much time at all. It kind of just sucks for the people that don't have some of the parts already, as you'll have to wait a week or 2 to get the rest of the parts. So that's unfortunate, but in terms of what the actual sniper does, as you can see, it has incredibly high base damage that you can do up to 4 million damage a shot with it pretty easily if you have the right build setup. But anyways, let's take a look at the talents. So for the main talent, it reads, shots fired deal 0 to 100% weapon damage based on how long the trigger is held before releasing. The time to reach max weapon damage is reduced whenever a shot does not kill an enemy that it hits. So basically the gun works just like a Widowmaker gun, where when you aim down the scope, you progressively get more and more extra damage until it caps out at 100% extra damage. The second talent says, aiming at an enemy marks them as your Nemesis for 15 seconds, letting you see them through walls, and your shots gain 5% damage to your Nemesis for each second that they are marked to a max of 50%. So, pretty self-explanatory. If I aim at a target, it will apply a debuff above their head for 10 seconds until I shoot them with the Nemesis gun. Keep in mind, this does not work with other guns, so for example, if I tried to apply the debuff and then swap weapons, I would not gain the extra damage on my other gun. And as for the holster talent, you gain 25% headshot damage when scoped with your current weapon. This is also pretty easy to understand, so when I use a gun with another scope, I just gain a flat 25% headshot damage. The holster talent is actually pretty insane because you can use a 3.4 times scope or a 4 times scope that still doesn't aim in completely, but you still gain the additional headshot damage. So if I want to use like an AR or an LMG with a scope that doesn't completely zoom in, I still get the extra headshot damage. This trick is only going to work with scopes that have a ×X value next to the scope name, but I'm assuming that this isn't intended, so I'd imagine that it gets patched soon, but I felt like it was still worth mentioning. Just know that it will only work with certain scopes. It won't work with like the scopes that don't have a value next to the name. Side note, this is especially strong when using the trick with the shield and using a 12 times scope, giving you a total of 70% headshot damage in total, which is absolutely insane. If you want to see the video about how to use a shield with extra headshot damage, just watch the video that I posted yesterday. But regardless, this is still insanely strong, and in some situations, it's actually going to give you more value when than using the chatterbox, which is great because, you know, it's nice to have another worthwhile exotic to use with different weapon types. I think this is even more strong when using a rifle, because with a rifle, you can't really benefit from chatterbox very much, but if you use, you know, the right scope, with this you're gaining just 25% headshot damage pretty much for free, which is amazing. One thing to note, the holster talent also actually affects the damage the sharpshooter specialist gun does as well, so that's pretty nice as well. But not only is it good to use as just a holster talent gun, the gun itself isn't actually that bad. It is a little bit inconvenient and kind of difficult to, you know, have to hold down the scope for a few seconds before shooting at somebody, and it probably isn't worth using in PvP or even PvE in most scenarios, like using it as the main weapon in your build, as it would probably be faster to just shoot them with, you know, something else. But if you're fighting a boss or, you know, one of those heavy mobs that have a ton of HP, it can be pretty nice to just swap to this gun, aim down sights for a second, and easily do 2, 3, 4 million damage in one shot and just one-shot them. It's actually a lot of fun to do that, and pretty rewarding, I guess. A couple of quick tips when using this gun: if you're waiting for an enemy to peek you while charging the gun, if you don't want the gun to automatically shoot, you can cancel the charge by scoping out again. And oftentimes you can also kill enemies by only half charging it, as you'll do plenty of damage as it is. Also, on some guys that like rush you with sticks or something, you could just hit them in the body. You don't have to hit the headshot. Hitting a lot of NPCs with a full charge in the body will still one-shot them, as the damage is so high. So that's one thing to note. So I'm sure many of you are curious about how I'm able to do around 4 million damage per shot with this gun. It's pretty simple, to be honest. This actually works as a functional build. If I were to use like a different gun, obviously I don't have like the right talent here. If I were to use a different gun, as you can see I did 4 million there, still do pretty good damage with another gun. You know, it's not very bad. 119k a hit with my AR, and that's not even having the right talents or anything. I'm kind of just using random pieces here, but yeah, this still works as a functional build if you for whatever reason want to do as much damage as humanly possible with the Nemesis. Here's how I did it. I pretty much just went 3 Araldi for the extra marksman rifle damage and the headshot damage. I stacked precise on my gloves and my holster, and then I just tried to get as much pure damage as possible via getting like weapon damage on the backpack, getting hard hitting, getting headshot damage on the mod here, getting damage to elites, and then getting weapon damage, headshot damage, damage to elites, weapon damage, marksman rifle damage. This could be a generic mod for marksman rifle damage maybe. You could even get way higher rolls here on the chest piece, and if you don't want to use Overlord, if you would want to use this with like an AR or something, still the same principle. You could just get weapon damage, headshot damage, and then like hard hitting or something. I think it's important though to try to get an offensive system mod for the extra marksman rifle damage, but I mean 4 million damage, like not many NPCs are going to be able to withstand that much damage, so maybe you don't even have to stack this much marksman rifle damage. I kind of just want to see how high of a number I could get it to. And again, on the holster, could go for crit chance here if I wanted to, but it doesn't really matter. For weapon damage, headshot damage. And then on the knee pads, I also have another mod for weapon damage and headshot damage. If you really wanted to min-max this, instead of having the wyvern on the knee pads, the mask, and the chest, I could instead have Providence, which would give me 5% weapon damage. If I had the right roll here, as you can see it has an offensive protocol here, I could get 5% weapon damage and do the same thing on the chest and the mask. I think the most important thing though is try to get as many offensive system mod rolls as you can, as these can often give you a ton of additional damage. I actually have one that gives me 6.5% marksman rifle damage. I should actually, yeah, I don't even know why I didn't even have that one in. If I have that one in, this damage actually goes up higher, and then I think I could do even more damage than that. I was getting up to 4.4 pretty much just by ADSing and then waiting for the Nemesis timer to go down. If I weren't to wait for the Nemesis timer, I'd only be losing 50%, which really isn't going to make that big of a difference in terms of the overall damage. But with the different mod here, one shot, I'll do a little bit less, but that's because it didn't crit. But as you can see, without it critting, 2.66 without critting and without the Nemesis buff. But I mean, 2.6 is still ridiculous, and you could technically get this set up way better. this is just how I have it. I mean, the build still works great with using like a rifle or some other thing. 250k with a rifle, still pretty good. And I don't even have a scope here. If I put a scope on, I get the extra headshot damage, 280k. So yeah, it might not be the best gun in the world, but at least it's pretty interesting. It isn't completely useless like the Pestilence or something. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. That's pretty much it for the video though. If you did enjoy, please make sure to drop a like, subscribe for videos similar to this one, comment below what other types of videos you would like to see from me in the future, and make sure to follow me on Twitch as I stream every single day. But anyways, I'll see you guys later. Peace.